Hello everyone, this is Chase the Channel. My name is Kirill and we talk about watches here. Today's Seiko, in my opinion, were made primarily for people who travel, wander, for explorers, for those who love to conquer new heights and discover new points on our planet. SRPD31J1. And you can purchase this model at my store, chasterclub.com. We offer the most affordable prices. All orders are personally overseen by me. Shipping worldwide. Links will be in the description. Well, before we move on to the dial and even the case back, which is also interesting and worth looking at, we'll start with the case. And the case is also surprising. Look, absolutely round. When was the last time you saw cases like this? It's something similar to a tuna, where there are no actual lugs on the case itself, but they are located slightly lower. It looks very, very intriguing. But still, on the right side, we see some asymmetry. Firstly, the main crown is located around the 4 o'clock position and it is recessed. So look at how interestingly it's done. For example, the manual winding, which is done in the 0 position, we do it like this. That is, not with 2 fingers, but only with the index finger from below. And I understand that it might be inconvenient to do this when the watch is on the wrist, only when it's taken off. At the 2 o'clock position, there's also a crown with a protective bulge, a huge bulge. This crown is also bigger than the main one. Look, it's 1.5, 2 times bigger. As you understand, this crown is responsible for rotating the inner bezel. We will also get to that. The lower part is polished, the case itself is satin finished, and the hardlex glass is slightly rounded, spherical. The case, of course, attracts attention. It's unusual, but directly under the glass, we see the dial and the inner bezel. The inner bezel, as you understand, with the cardinal directions. So here's the first signal that the watch is primarily made for travelers, for explorers. And it rotates effortlessly, quite easily. But here I think precisely this protective bulge actually prevents the crown from accidental rotation. That is, if you suddenly bump the watch and if the crown were not protected, then of course the bezel would shift. But this way it remains in a static position, and in principle we cannot worry when orienting directly by it if suddenly you want to use them instead of a compass. On the inner part of this bezel, we still see minute markings. Pay attention. The dial itself is black, as is, in fact, this bezel. There are also elements in a vintage beige color. These are the indices, the numbers 6, 9, and 12, and the luminescent material on the hands. By the way, if we look closer, the hands have a satin finished surface, not polished, and their shape somewhat reminds me of the hands from the latest Citizen review, quite similar. The second hand is intriguing, long, and with a large counterweight, where this circle is also luminescent. The luminescent material is also on the indices, but not on the numbers. We'll definitely look at them in the dark. The date window, although framed, has a black disc, so it doesn't draw too much attention. Day of the week and date. Overall, I think the design is quite harmonious. Nothing stands out directly on the dial. But on the case, of course, the crown probably takes most of the attention. Inside is the 4R36 mechanism, Seiko's classic, with an approximate power reserve of 41 hours, 2 types of winding. Automatic and manual. Manual, as I already mentioned, is done in the 0 position. Then you pull it to the first position, where you change the day of the week, date, and to the second, where the stop seconds function is, and you change the hand's position. By the way, the hands are very responsive and react instantly to turning the crown. Exactly at 12, the date flips over, then the day of the week follows. Here we have 2 languages, English and Arabic. That's one option. change of the day of the week. And by the way, let's take a look. Surely Sunday will be highlighted in a different color. Here, by the way, the positions are close to each other, so you need to very carefully move the head forward. Yes, I hit the spot. Clockwise, we are changing the day of the week accordingly. I noticed that Friday was highlighted in red there, I believe, and in English, Sunday. I'm not strong in Arabic, to be honest. Let's look again. There it is, highlighted in red. And the date changes counterclockwise. Let's take a look at the back case. I promised you there are interesting details here. Not only is it transparent, allowing us to see our Seiko mechanism and rotor through it, but we are also greeted by seemingly unusual inscriptions here. They are not applied on the surface, but seemingly inside or on the inner side of the glass. Attentive viewers of my channel remember that we've seen this in the green Seiko turtle, though there the case back was solid, but the inscriptions were the same. These are earth-air emergency signals. I really hope you'll never need them in your life. But if an emergency arises for travelers, it's simply a necessity. And if we look closer, here we have information about the water resistance of 20 atmospheres. Well, I think they make it this level just in case, though of course you are unlikely to go diving with these watches. Information about the case material, the mechanism, and the Japanese origin of this model. Lumibrite, as always, performs excellently. A beautiful turquoise shade, I always noted. Maybe adding luminescent markers at 6, 9, 12 would enhance it further, but it's already beautiful. Readability is excellent from different angles. The model on the wrist. The strap is new, not broken in, so it may not fit perfectly yet, but over time it will conform better to your wrist. And I'd note that it looks great on a bare wrist. Here is that rare case where the height of the case and the width, or more precisely the diameter, are the same, 43 millimeters. Because essentially there are no lugs as such, and those that are present are slightly smaller if you measure the length at their edges than the case itself. Thickness is 14.4 millimeters. Basically, it's probably not that big visually because most of the thickness comes from the protruding case back. And the leather strap, 22 millimeters wide, has a brown hue that harmonizes with the beige elements on the dial. It's high quality, truly pleasant to the touch, and yet it is designed more for small and medium wrists, somewhere from 14.5 to 20.5 centimeters. The buckle is branded. And the total weight is 82 grams. Well, it is actually also quite small. Despite the diver's 20 atmospheres, despite belonging to the Prospex line, I think this model is primarily for people who love going into nature or hiking. Undoubtedly, this model will be good in an urban environment as well, especially with beige brown jackets or even beige shirts. Why not? You can try combining. But it also looks great on a bare wrist. I think it's perfect for summer-autumn. Of course, these watches have their own charm. One could say about them that they stand out even against the backdrop of regular Seiko tunas. We see that the model, while adopting some familiar elements, looks unique in its own way. Yes, the body is round. That's cool. That's cool. And such specimens are so rare for me to come across that it's truly impressive. Even though the lugs seem quite small compared to the case, the harmony in size and color is still maintained. Beige vintage shade, brown strap, black dial. Beautiful, beautiful. Just like the case back. Here too, we can look at the mechanism. These signals are fit here. It's unusual in its own way. Well, I think you won't argue with me that this model has a number of interesting standout elements. By the way, in my store, besides this color option, there's also another variant. A true Japanese assistant for your discoveries and travels at an affordable price. I definitely recommend it. At the end, I would also like to know your opinion about this model. Be sure to leave it in the comments under the video. If you liked it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That's all. Goodbye, everyone.